How's it going, everyone? I just wanted to make a quick video this week addressing what I perceive as to be some, I suppose, concerns from my small audience about me using AI in my PhD. And I totally understand people, like, it's a very divisive topic. I totally understand people not loving that. Had a few people, one person said they're just unsubscribing, and another person saying that they might have to unsubscribe, and then I ended up talking to them and not like trying to convince them to stay necessarily, but just wanted to get my perspective and my actual feelings on AI out there. And so that's what I wanted to make this video about, is to be very transparent. I do say this, a lot of this stuff at the beginning of a lot of my videos, my PhD videos, but I think it might be good to just to have a single short video that sort of addresses these things, because I don't know, it's a very new technology. It's very divisive. It presents a lot of social problems in the world, and I'm not blind to any of that stuff, and I'm certainly not using it because I don't care about any of that stuff. So I've written a little bit of a list of some things I want to address here, and let's just go through them. So right at the top, I want to say I don't really like using AI. Like, I'm researching it, and that's why I'm using it, because I'm researching it. It is part of my PhD research. I chose that topic because it's obviously very new. It's kind of part of the zeitgeist of discussion in the art world. But then also I chose it because I knew that the university would be interested in it as well. And then on top of that, I chose that because I'm genuinely interested in the tech. I don't love using it, and I'll get to why in a sec, but I genuinely think it is fascinating technology. And while it is in a very weird space at the moment, and as it sort of develops, it's becoming, I suppose, increasingly worrying, which maybe we'll get to the reasons why some of that is. I also think that as a technology, it is extremely interesting and extremely powerful. And what it can, like machine learning in general, what it can give us in the world of science, in the world of medicine, all great stuff. No, I don't think anybody should deny that. It's like a huge leap forward in that regard. In terms of art, it's a bit of a different story, but I'll come to that in a sec. So I guess I just wanted to say up front, I don't love AI. I'm using it for my research. And if it were up to me and I was just making music as I normally would, I wouldn't be using AI. And it's not really because of the ethical issues, although that is a factor. More than anything, it's a creative choice, because using AI in your creative work is actually quite limiting. And more than anything, as a creative, as an artist, when I make stuff, I'm not making it for the end result, really. Like, that's part of it. When I make a song, I make that song so that I can go through the process of making a song, so that I can execute on the creative process, because that's the joy. Ask any artist. It's not the result, it's the journey along the way. Like, I really love making music. I really love making art. I'm not really interested in any process that kind of shortcuts my way to the end, especially if it means that I didn't get to fully express myself, right? So there's that. But then on top of that, using AI in my work, the way I'm using it in my research, I'm really trying my hardest to avoid any situation where I'm not the primary creative force behind it. Because if I'm not the primary creative force behind it, I essentially have no interest in it. So I'm trying to wrangle the technology to work for me in a way that, as an artist, I'm satisfied using it. And also in a way which I feel like is ethically sound. Okay? So that's kind of upfront. That's what I want to say about how I feel about AI. But let's move on to some other things, right? So right away, I just wanted to say that that technology is always controversial. Always in art fields, in creative fields, it always is. It always has been. So a primary huge example of this is the advent of the camera, the photograph camera. People were super worried when the camera came out that paintings would just end, just no more paintings after that. And in fact, the opposite is true, really. Like different styles just exploded out of that because suddenly not everything needed to be photorealistic in a painting because we could already do that with a photograph. So now it's like opens up the floodgates for all these different ways we can be creative, all these different ways we can represent the real world or the abstract world through paint. So that's an instance where people were super worried and it turned out completely differently. Back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, people constantly, I feel like, were talking about how synthesizers were the devil's work, basically. They were bad for rock music. They weren't real rock music. And that you didn't need any skill to play them. You didn't need any talent or anything like that, especially with stuff like sequences. If anybody's seen Pink Floyd's Live at Pompeii, there's a whole part where Roger Waters is talking about how using music technology, he sees it as not a problem. And it's clearly in response to a subset of the audience that thinks it is a problem. So I don't know. I just think that's fascinating, right? And sequences are the same. And in fact, sequences are perhaps even more derided, or were in the 80s and stuff when they were becoming really popular, because people were just like, well, you don't have to have any musical talent to operate them. And that's not really true for a start. I think to operate a sequencer effectively, you have to know how the sequencer works, which in itself is a bit of a task. You probably should understand how music theory works. Otherwise, whatever you make is going to sound like shit. And thirdly, I don't think you get to either of those two preceding points without having an understanding of how to play other instruments as well. So it's just kind of like wrong from every viewpoint, and it clearly comes from somebody who's ill-informed about how music is made, right? So I just wanted to bring that up. Then on top of that, there's the whole argument of analog versus digital, and there's all these analog purists out there saying, and I don't just mean with synthesizers, I mean with recording technology. When digital became a thing, heaps of people were like, no, we can't go digital. We've got to stay analog, got to stay with tape and all of this stuff. And as admirable as that can be, and as I understand that, I understand why that would be the case, because tape has a certain sound and all of that stuff. At the end of the day, digital did not ruin music. It did not make music sound worse. If anything, it just gave us more tools at our disposal to craft the productions that we want to craft, and to do it really with great detail, really minutely. That's a win in my book. And you can still get a tape-like sound using digital equipment. So technology, again, advances in it. People are always against it. But at the end of the day, you can't really stop it. And in the end, it's usually beneficial for the whole industry. Jury's still out on whether or not that's true of AI, but it's worth pointing out, right? What else? What else do I have to talk about here? One final thing about tech. This is a bit anecdotal and it's not totally relevant, but remember, Bob Dylan used to only play, and I'm not even a big fan of Bob Dylan, but he used to exclusively play acoustic, and he would go in front of shows playing his acoustic guitar and just him with his microphone. And as soon as he went electric, people hated him for it. Absolutely hated him for it. Some of that is ideological, like a shift from going from folk to rock. But I think another part of it is people just didn't like the electric sound. They felt it was probably inauthentic to his sort of political, folksy songwriting, right? So you're always going to find people who hate new technology. It's just a factor of our world. So yeah, that's kind of mostly all I wanted to talk about. I'm just going through my notes here. I feel like I've pretty much... Oh, there's one more thing. So when I already sort of touched on this, but the way that I'm using AI, like I said, is not to replace creative process with a technological process. I want to be the creative force behind my work still, even if I'm using AI as a sort of accoutrement to my work. And I don't really see that as vastly different from, say, using preset libraries, using sample packs, using loops to create works. You'd be shocked at how many extremely famous, I guess famous in the underground sense, in electronic music, how many extremely famous producers, extremely successful producers essentially build their tracks using loops. And I'm not saying that's a problem. And you need more than just assembling a bunch of loops together to make a quality production. They have a lot of skill. They know how to wield it. I'm not trying to take that away from them. But at the end of the day, they are still using presets and loops. Is that wrong? I'm sure somebody out there thinks that's wrong. But I don't think it's really wrong. It's just using the technology you have to craft creative works that you resonate with, that sort of express yourself in the art. So yeah, and then on top of that, platforms like Splice, which are huge, absolutely huge sample platforms, they so popular that I've heard so many of the same loops across multiple tracks, and I know they're from Splice because I've looked them up. Splice now has trained an AI model on their entire library of loops, so you can now just get new loops from Splice which are AI generated, right? Is that really much different? I don't really think it's much different. As long as if the loops were paid for originally, which they were from Splice, and I don't really like Splice, I'm just using it as an example. I don't know. Look, there's an argument to be made ethically about this stuff, of course. I think my final thought on the ethics of it, though, really are, it's not the technology that's wrong. It's our world that's wrong. Because even though the tech could be used for good, it could be used in a fascinating, interesting way that will push humanity forward, it will not be used that way. It will be used by the extremely wealthy to subjugate the extremely poor, or just the regular poor, just regular people like you and me, because capitalism will not allow for this technology to be used in any other way other than a highly exploitative way. That I completely agree on. It's the tech is going to be used for bad, for evil, than it ever is going to be used for good. More so for bad than for good is what I mean. So yeah, anyway, that's probably going to do this video. I've been talking for a little bit too long now, probably already. Final thought though, I have not been making other content because I simply do not have the time. Doing a PhD takes up a lot of my time. I also have a teaching job, which also takes up a huge amount of my time. I simply don't have time to make more video content than I'm already making, and the video content I'm making is for my PhD, and it's part of a vlog series that is literally part of the research that I'm doing. So there will be new content. There will be VCV content. There'll probably be guitar content. I fucking really want to make some guitar content. There's going to be more content. It's just that right now, I just don't have the time. And if that means that you're not interested in continuing subscribing, I totally understand that. I just wanted the reason for people to unsubscribe to be informed by my actual views on AI technology, because people have a very knee-jerk reaction to this stuff and lack nuance, which I guess is just a problem with humanity at large, is a complete lack of nuance and critical thinking. Anyway, I hope that didn't sound too much like a tirade. I didn't intend it to be a tirade. I'm not actually angry or upset about this. I just don't want to be misunderstood. That's the main thing. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. Please stay tuned for my other videos, which there will be many of coming up soon as I go headlong into sort of new techniques using AI to creatively make music. Cool. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.